All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the sixth episode of the Hipfire podcast. And back here again with co host Yasser. I'm Seth. And today we have a jam packed podcast, lots to talk about since our last podcast. So I think we're going to start with a little bit of champs update. We're going to go into a bit of GAs and roster moves. Then we'll get into the recent event, which obviously New York won, winning their own event, which congratulations to them. It's only been done by FaZe in the past, so that's pretty nice. Then we'll go into the AM scene, show off some clips from those guys, and then wrap it up with our predictions for the next event. To kick it off, I'm going to send it over to Yas. He's going to discuss the recent champs updates that we've given.
Yeah, so I'd imagine as many of you know, Champs is now online. It looks like the CDL deemed that it wasn't safe, or they weren't able to find a safe method of getting all the players into a location to run and operate a LAN environment. As a result, Champs will be on LAN, and as of today, we know that we'll see playoffs from the 19th to the 23rd of August, and then we'll have a best of 9. That's new. Best of 9 final on August 29th to the 30th. So just my initial thoughts on the whole scenario. Obviously, it sucks. I think we were all looking forward to a LAN environment for Champs. Champs has always been crazy in the past. Obviously, this time with only 8 teams, it'd be a bit different, but it was sort of the saving grace. But obviously, safety is first. Doesn't in given how crazy things are in the States right now, it's totally understandable why they weren't able to find a venue, even thought it was safe to run a LAN. So see people complaining about the situation, and Seth, you can expand on that point. But there's nothing they can
Yeah.
really do. This is the best that they can do given the pandemic. It just sucks. Playoffs should be exciting though. Hopefully, see some crazy matchups. I think the best of 9 initially. I was a bit, iffy about it, given the fact that having the winners team only have a 1-0 lead, or starting up 1-0, didn't feel like that much of an advantage compared to in the past. Obviously, the losers bracket team had to win 2 best of 5s. But I will admit that the best of 9 matchup does allow for teams to show what their map pool is like, and it should lead to more entertaining series. So at least there's that. But what are your thoughts, Seth?
So my initial thoughts about champs being online was that it's expected. I even posted in the Reddit a couple times talking about how people that thought it was going to be online is a bit like a fake hope, and it's not really going to happen because the cases are still rising in the U.S. and it's not under control at all, and it'd be a little irresponsible to hold a big venue event with a bunch of players. I know the NBA are doing it. We have to remember the NBA are a much bigger company than the CDL, so they can afford to do so. Also, I think you have to consider staff as well, not just the players. There's a lot of moving parts that go into running an event, and I think it's gonna be online. That's the way it is. And I just want to touch a bit about pro players complaining about online play and chance getting online. And the thing I want to say is, at the end of the day, you're playing a video game, and that's your job. I think it's annoying to say because they're taking their job very seriously and they all want to win, and I appreciate that, and that's why they're complaining, and I get that. But you have to just take a step back and remember that we're in a pandemic right now, and the U.S. specifically has recently had historic job loss numbers. Right, people losing their jobs and are risking their lives to go into work, and that's the kind of situation for the average American. And these COD players are not average Americans. Right? Their job is online, and they get salaried to play online in the comfort of their own home. And so to see them complaining a lot, I get it. All right, there hasn't been good dev support. It sucks that it's online because it isn't balanced. I agree. It's not really fair, right? But this is the best they're going to get it, and they're still able to earn a living doing what they like to do, and that's just a really awesome thing for them. And they should just be a little bit more appreciative of the fact that they're in that position. And the complaining just it makes them seem a little bit, just a little bit. I don't know what the word is. Just a little bit, snobby, or it's just it feels a little entitled. That's the right word to use. I don't like using that word because I don't think it's really fair, but that's the way they rub off sometimes when they're complaining so much. Um, but I think it'll be exciting. And when it comes down to counting, chips and counting this as a championship, I don't think we have to count them as like championships. I don't think it really matters. I think there's a place where these specific online events are still very competitive, and people really want to win these. Like the pros are really trying their best to win these
Yep.
events. Right? They're not just skipping on them. They're not like 2Ks. All right, because 2Ks they mattered in the beginning of the year, but at a certain point they weren't crying over losing a 2K. All right, these are bigger events. So I think it's more than a 2K, but it is online, and they should not count as chips in my opinion. But it doesn't take away from us being able to enjoy it. I don't think fans should enjoy it any less because it's online. I think there's still a lot of competitiveness, and across other esports, they're all doing it online, and it's still competitive. It's still fun. So just try to enjoy it a little bit more, and the circumstances are what they are. But I think if the pros and the community just came together to try to have a fun playoffs, I think it'd be a lot better. And hopefully next year with more dev support, whether or not it's online or on LAN, it'll look a lot better. So that's kind of my thoughts on champs being online. In terms of this format, I'm excited for the best of 9. Like Yasser said, you get to test your map pool. The first thing that I thought of when I saw this was World War II champs, right? EG beats TK because EG could beat TK on those specific maps, right? But it goes into a best of 9. I wonder if TK would have won that. So it's interesting to think. Like, I think this will be a better way of determining who the best team is as a whole, rather than just who the best team is against a certain team, right? I think that it'll like in the past, some teams go to gameplay against better teams and pick certain maps. I think this will really stretch teams out, and we'll find out who the most well versed team is, and that'll be a good tell for who the best team is. So I think this is the best format I think we've had ever in Call of Duty to determine at this current moment in time, at the end of the year, who is the best team in the world. I think this is probably the most ironed out format. You're not going to have weird champs brackets you had in the past with certain upsets messing up the bracket, right? This is kind of the most concrete way we can determine who the best team was, which I find exciting. So yeah, after that little speech, Yas, do you want to start getting into the GAs a little bit?
Yeah, so gentlemen agreements, I'm sure you guys are tired of hearing it, but we figured that given that it's been so prevalent in the scene, we might as well discuss it. So as we know right now, or a couple of weeks ago, we saw that Modern Warfare had a bit of an update. We saw that no stock on the M4 wasn't as good. The MP5, a lot of alterations have gone into it. Pros initially said no to 10 millimeters. They said no to ATS, obviously, prior to that. Fun fact, I think Crim 6 actually used ATS during scrims just to see if people would pick up on it. And fun fact, they did. I'm called them out for it.
Yep.
So yeah, we saw 10 millimeter taken out. That was the main GA initially going into this event. And as a result, we saw other guns start to be used. We saw the Uzi at one point be used. We saw some frying with the .4 AE mags, but then that was banned. The conversions were banned. We saw even the AUG for a short time come into play. And coming to this event, I think we both expected, because FaZe had said they were going to play with the AUGs because that's what they scrimmed with. Come event time, it looked like they caved to the GAs, which as a result, we saw a very AR M4 dominant meta. The MP5 was kind of like a pea shooter at times, was not nearly as good as it used to be without the 10 millimeter mags. So that definitely led to a very interesting event where players were put in a position where they could switch roles on a dime, and it allowed teams to be able to do better than one would have expected coming into this event. That's for sure.
Yeah. So what do you make of like the idea of having a 2-gun meta where we can't really, there's not room for a flex SMG of an AUG or Uzi or a Grau. We saw Grau like twice the entire event. But are you more comfortable with 2 guns, 3 guns being used, or would you like to see more variety? Just from your
I
standpoint.
think as a fan standpoint, you obviously want to see variety. I think from a pro standpoint, you want consistency, which is why I think a lot of players voted for the AUG to go. Even though I know pros, especially FaZe and even I think some of the Dallas players, were talking about there's no real reason to ban the AUG. It's like overpowered. They thought it was fair to play, but some players are saying that because of some videos or clips on Twitter, the AUG doing some unreal things, that people want to ban it, despite the fact that we've seen numerous clips about the MP5 and M4 getting kills that they have no right getting. So I think it's a bit of complacency. The pros, they don't want to, switch what they've practiced for all year, and we kind of see this as once this event ends, 10 millimeter mags are once again back in the rotation, are no longer
Yep.
G8. So that sort of proves that theory that they want consistency, and anything outside of that, they're willing to ban as a result.
Yeah, that's a good that's a good insight from a fan perspective because I think some fans, want the variety, but others want pros to feel comfortable
Hmm.
and be able to have some kind of consistency because the game changes every year, which I get. Personally, I think we should be using guns more situationally, specifically. Like for example, like the Grau, we saw I think it was Formal pulled it out on that P5 on Azure Cave. I'd like to see that more in S&D as well, or specific hills. I think there's definitely opportunity to use certain guns in different places, and I think I wonder if it's already too late in the end of the year to see that, but we'll see. Also, just wanted to note this graphic came from an Octane thumbnail.
Yep. Yeah.
His thumbnails have been great the past couple videos, and he's putting out consistent content. So you guys should go over and check it out. It's good to see a pro player taking the initiative and making content for us because it keeps us interested. So that's nice from
Yeah.
him.
Shout out to Octane.
Shout out to Octane. With that out of the way, we're going to go into the roster move that is uh, not unexpected because the new Optic was going to do something, but unexpected in terms of who they picked up. And so I have my ear to the ground when it comes to the AM scene, and I always, check out the Challengers Cups and see who's performing well on scrims and whatnot. And when I heard they're picking up people from UIU, a possible rumor, I was pretty sure one of them was going to be Dylan Rex. That guy is playing very well. He was kind of just frying people everywhere on the map, but instead, or Cells. Cells is another guy in UIU who was great in S&D specifically, always dropping like double digits in S&D. But instead they went with Draza and Hollow. I mean, that's no like I don't want to give these guys too much slack. I mean, they've been playing great as well online and in the MC and for the past couple of years. I know Nox. I mean, sorry, Hollow used to go by Nox. So Nox, obviously, I don't know if you guys remember this, but USS Texas, World War II, he got smoked and missed out on champs. So these guys have like been at the top of the EMC in the past, or rising to the top of the EMC. And I think one of them was a former teammate of Mac. And so the guys have been there, but personally, these weren't the choices I would have made as a pickup. But to get into that later, when we go over the MC later in the podcast, I'll give you who I would have thought they should have picked up. But it's exciting nevertheless to see these young guys get a chance on an organization like Optic, playing with a guy like Slasher. I think, for as much as I want to say that they should have gone for somebody else, I think these two guys are both skilled, and with a guy like Slasher leading them, we'll see. It could be good. Do you have anything to say about this decision, Yas?
Obviously, you know more about Draza and Hollow more than I do, so I can't really speak to them. What I will say is, it's kind of unfortunate that Dashi isn't playing right now, given how the meta sort of favors more M4s in the map. I think obviously they had their reasons for not or for leaving him on the bench, but I feel like if he had an M4 in his hand right now next to Slasher, it'd be such a better team. But I'm very curious to see how they do. I think you mentioned Lamar, uh, or Accuracy, as many of you know him, said that they were doing fine in scrims. Obviously, as we'll touch on later in the show, their next couple events are super important. So, we're curious to see how these new guns, new young guns play.
Yeah, and for me, if they come out and they don't do well in hardpoint and like respawn game modes, I'll be a little upset, but also it's teamwork. But if they come out and have a dud in S&D, that's where I'll have a problem because I think if you wanted to come out and play well in S&D, there's better choices you could have picked up from the MC. But that's my thoughts on that roster move. I'll talk about it later when we get into the MC. But first, before we do that, we gotta talk about CDL New York, which obviously New York won. So first, we're going to break down the group stages a little bit. So Group A, we had Paris, Toronto, Atlanta, and Lag, and we saw Toronto and Atlanta make it out, and that's kind of what we predicted coming into this event. We thought those two teams would make it out. It was kind of between Lag and Toronto as that other team. But we did not expect Toronto to beat Atlanta at all. And before we get into Atlanta's struggles, though, I want to quickly. Actually, no. Yeah, we'll get the starter right now. So, yes, why don't you talk about why Atlanta's been struggling lately?
Well, just an overview of Atlanta's event. Obviously, we see them fall to Toronto and then fall to Spin later on. Obviously, going into this event, everyone expected them to run the AUG, and then they had to switch the last moment. So that can't be an excuse that maybe they didn't get enough scrim time on this current meta that we're playing in. But I think it's a bit deeper than that. Obviously, past events we've seen FaZe consistently go map 5, and they typically win them, with the exception of Florida, where they lose. But yeah, they're constantly winning these map 5s, and it's like, oh, how can they do it? How can they do it? They finally do lose to Toronto, and this weekend in particular, we saw them horrible in S&D. I mean, they only won one S&D the entire event, which was against Paris. I mean, for the best S&D team to lose that many rounds is quite shocking, especially given the fact that looking at advanced stats. So shout out to guys like Derek Tao, Carson on Twitter, Cam Allen, and EasyMac for all these stats. We'll have their links or Twitter's in the link below, or description below rather. But they have all these stats, and they're tracking first bloods, and this was getting first bloods 61% of the time. So most of the rounds they were getting first bloods, they just never converted on them. And it was really confusing for a team that is so strong at S&D and mid-round S&D calls for them to struggle in that aspect, especially when they get the first bloods, because that's probably the most difficult part in any S&D. For them to fumble that man advantage, and then even with their map vetoes, it seemed a bit odd. It looked like they were trying to stretch their map pool, which would make sense given the position they're in. They're just trying to practice for champs. But it was definitely an off event for them. I think looking forward, if this becomes a pattern, I'd be concerned. But for now, I think we can just consider it one bad event for Atlanta. But we have a bit of an example or clips that demonstrate their lack of ability to capitalize on man advantages.
At once, it's a clean dispatch. 5-on-3. BZ can't quite find any more through the rear. Simp now trying to kill those players in mid. Major Maniac still battling his way forward. Now it's a 3 versus 1. Decimate on his lonesome will find one kill, but the trade should be there. But no! He finds the second kill! Now it's a 1 versus 1. And from behind, Simp.
Not enough. Not enough. That is Decimate with a 1v3. This bomb is going to blow up in his face, Miles.
Is it?
That's going to be the end of it.
It's just
going to be the end of it.
I was holding my...
Yeah, we see...
We got one more from... you can go ahead.
Yeah, we see Desi there, this 1v3. And let me set up this next clip. So obviously they play the Ultra, lose the Ultra in the map 5, which is the first time they lost the map 5 in quite some time. First time online that they've lost the map 5, I believe. Ultra did a great job. They won both S&Ds, and they stole a hard point, which is what they were going to need to do if they're going to beat a team like FaZe. Notably, the hard point they won was Gunrunner. And this one, and we've talked about it on this podcast in the past, despite the good record for FaZe, they often fall flat on that map. They've beaten a couple teams here and there. I think they're 4-3 in the past couple events, which is, it's a winning record, but for a team like FaZe, you should be winning them more consistently. They lost to Dallas, Florida, and Ultra, a couple strong teams, but if you're gonna make that a staple map that you want to play in the rotation, you need to be better at it. Noticeably against Ultra, they were losing rotation. They were getting out. They were outslaying at points, but they just weren't winning the key battles to win that map. And against a team like Ultra, like why didn't they map like Petrograd or Cave where Ultra is struggling on? It's like some of their map vetoes, they're confusing. I'm guessing they're trying to test their map pool. But in map 5, we see Ramaza S&D, another strong map for Ultra. And in this key round that we're about to show you, it's important to note, again, we're talking about how they've had man advantage the entire time. They had a 5v3 here, and they ended up scrambling it.
Hanger. And Methods now, he's staring down the barrel of death number 8. If he's not careful, Bant's unable to get too much more out of that one. The shots are there. This is a nice nade over the top, but he's going to have to contest with now a Priest. A lovely throw from Bant. Simp gets the, I suppose, express delivery of that. Semtex nade, and now Simp, he managed to slip past. He didn't get the kill. He gets taken up by a teammate. Bant lives to fight another day, and look at this rotation. He's going all the way round. Methods in on site. 30 seconds. FaZe have not got the bomb down yet. And here comes Cammy to reinforce. Methods gets on the board with 1 kill, and it was an important one, 2 versus 2. They now have the opportunity for something special, but Cammy, he shows up late to the party. A very handy nade, but it may have just given his position, but a stun! Oh my word, it lands, he finds the first kill, now a 1 versus 1. Cammy, he may have just done it. He's only gone and done it. Cammy, you cheeky bugger. Oh boy, Ultra now. It's gonna be map.
Yeah, see, it was a massive round. It ended up making it 5-3, and Ultra ended up winning that series and map. So just to reiterate, I mean, they knew where Banson Methods were. They knew Methods was in sight. I mean, it was a 1v1 across the map, and all of a sudden, their man advantage is gone, and they scramble that round. Very unlike FaZe to do, to have a misplay like that. Obviously, a nice clutch by Ultra as well. Again, that sort of reiterates the point. You know, FaZe, they clearly have some cleaning up to do in that department. Obviously, you know, some positives. BZ looked unreal. I mean, probably one of the most impressive events I think I've ever seen, especially on. I mean, for online that is. BZ had a 1.3, the highest KD at event with an MP5 that had been nerfed to the ground essentially by both the devs and GA. So super impressive for him to play like that. Good simp on the M4. Both Selim and Major Maniac had off events in terms of S&D, so I don't think it has to necessarily do with roles. I think maybe just more practice. Maybe they're just trying to stretch their map pool, but that's essentially my takeaway from Group A. Obviously, great job by Toronto. LAG losing to Paris, bit surprising. I mean, they got smoked by Paris. They played Petro S&D, which they'd never won, so very confusing why they didn't veto that. It looks like they really don't have much hope. Yeah, that wraps up Group A. What are your thoughts, Seth?
So just to touch on Group A a little bit, the only thing I want to mention from this group, outside of what we already talked about before, is just Decimate in particular. We saw that 1v3 from him, and he looked great in that clip. And I also saw him making some pretty good plays the entire event. I know they got smoked by Paris, but I think he's still someone to look out for as someone that, I don't know, maybe this year's already kind of chalked for him in that team. I don't know how much better they can possibly get. But going into next year, you know, Decimate was supposed to be that guy in World War II that was the best out of the bunch. When all the pros talked about Pharaoh, Blast, Decimate, Bevels, when that group kind of broke through, all the pros said JT, like that's Decimate, JT was going to be the best. You know, he's the one that can listen the most and get better the most. I mean, obviously Pharaoh was very skilled, but people were wondering about his attitude and mentality in games. Because at the time, well, I don't know if you guys remember the whole Parasite and Pharaoh thing, but anyways, the whole point I'm trying to make is Decimate is extremely talented still. You can see it in the gameplay. He still has the talent, right? He's not a bad player. So I'm wondering if next title he'll be able to join a team that has better potential, because I think the last 2 years for him have been kind of rough. You know, obviously joining G2 last year, and they don't make the league, and then the buyout's super high, so no one wants to pick up Decimate. I think eventually got picked up by Envy, but it was towards the end of the year, and it was kind of falling apart. And then this year he joins the Gorillas, which is, I don't know how much of it is him making bad roster moves or him not getting picked up by a good team. But I just wanted to single out Decimate because even though they did terribly this weekend, I specifically noticed that he did a pretty good job. So I just wanted to note that. But that'll wrap up Group A. So going into Group B, couple weird things right off the bat, which we saw Asim and Mac running M4s. And those two guys were entry MP5s before. So just kind of odd. I talked about it a little bit before with Yasser. We were kind of discussing what we think of that. And I was kind of saying, you know, I wonder if it's a call where we just want our best player to have an M4. I think that might have been the call. You know, we just want a guy that has the best gun skill, you know, best everything to have the M4. So if that was the call, you know, it worked. Asim looked fine. Mac looked fine. You know, obviously Minnesota doesn't make it out and, you know, finished in last. But they showed improvements from last weekend. Alex needs to play better though, man. He's got to do better. I don't know if it's something still bothering him or if it was a meta change, but he's got to do better. And then London, Scraps and Wutskins looked great on the M4 together, the twins. And Shawnee on that Petra S&D looked fantastic as well. So, not Petra, Ramaza S&D. Shawnee was playing great. Had some good calls from Maven and Jack for that. Jack, I wish. Maven and Merc for that game. But yeah, with those teams out of the way, I think the most exciting part of this group is definitely the Chicago-New York matchup. That's kind of really what stuck out. All the other stuff I talked about was fun, but wasn't as important. New York for Chicago, that was important. That was a big match, and it went Chicago's way in the first series. And just gonna show some clips of that series quickly. You have the 1v2 from Formal.
Let's go to Formal's POV. See if he can get it done in the 1 versus 2. Temp Demon again from top. Trying to get away. The flank comes in, but he reads it. What a read from Formal. 1v1 now. 30 seconds to go.
Temp has Daddy. He's trying to track him down.
Formal wins it. What a clutch. The beautiful read onto the flank from accuracy.
Yeah, so even though Chicago does end up taking the series there, we saw a lot of good things from New York in the group stage. They looked very, very, very clean in the whole group. Like, they looked clean against Minnesota, they looked clean against London, and even against Chicago, they pushed them to map 5. So it wasn't one of those situations where New York coming in the semifinals and smoking everyone was like the biggest surprise because of how well they looked. And we'll get into the whole map picks later, but first I want to show off some clips from New York in the group stages. So the first one we got is Zuma having a fun time.
And here we go. With a bang, this fight is about to start. Can Zuma get involved? 1, 2. Has he got any more here? 3. There's another player on the outside. Zuma, do it! He's going to get 4 of them. That's the 5th kill in a row. And that's going to be the Subliners hard point.
Gonna be the Subliners hard point, the Subliners play of the game, the Subliners moving on to Saturday with a smile on their face, and the birthday present with the knives. Cut them all down.
And here we
Yeah, insane clip from Zuma there. And the next clip we have is Temp and S&D. Yeah, so why don't you set the scene up for this round?
Yeah, so we see New York versus London, map 2. They're round 11. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, London was actually 1-0 up in this matchup. They had taken Gunrunner hardpoint, if I'm not mistaken. So this was very important for New York. Obviously, this match they needed. If they want points, they need to make it this next series, or next round, rather. Be one of those top 2 teams that already lost to the Huntsman. So, very important round. It is interesting to note, I believe going into this round 11, they were 5 or 6-0 in round 11, which in itself seems kind of absurd, but Temp himself, it looked like he was having a slow game in this S&D, but had quite the aggressive strat that ended up paying off in round 11.
It's a 4 versus 3, but they know there's 2 in that area, so they take the push and take it towards the 2 that are inside apartments, able to find those kills and then get the bomb down.
Well, it's offense for Subliners in round 11. Trophy out, and they are just going, surging on through, and what a big play it is from Temp. 2 are going to drop a Simtex and a headshot on a 0. Scraps is going to get caught. Temp just picks them apart in round 11. What a play. And in the blink of an eye, it's Waskin last alive in a 1v4. Temp just takes them to Pound Town, beats them down. Oh, Mike Tyson, and gets the final kill. 4 in the round 11, and Subliners get it done.
Yeah, what an amazing play from Temp. He's just like, all right, round 11, guys, we're not losing this. We just suffered that loss against Chicago. We're not doing this. We're making it through. Just decides to bulldoze his way through Petrograd S&D. Like, yeah, usually when you see people picking out 4 rounds or 4 kills in a round in Petrograd, it's like an envoy play where he flanks behind everyone and shoots everyone in the back. No, but this is Temp. Just, I'm in your mouth. I'm in your face. I'm going to shoot you. Great play from Donnie. That kind of just highlights how dominant they were in the group stage. Like, I know they lost to Chicago, but like I said before, they looked very, very clean. And we'll get into which maps which were in the grand final, because there's some questionable map vetoes there.
Mm-hmm.
But just a little tweet. The first 4 hardpoint wins for the Subliners at the event. They outslayed by a whopping 30.75 kills. Kind of insane. We did this thing with Subliners. We knew they had this potential. We knew they were very gifted and had a lot of talent. We hadn't seen it put together all year, and it's scary when they can outslay by that margin, because I venture to say they're better disciplined with a guy like Lamar as the captain than FaZe would be. So if they can outslay like FaZe can, and they're more disciplined than FaZe as well, it's a scary recipe. But that takes us into the semifinals, which I got a nice little graphic for. So yeah, so why don't you break down semifinals for us?
Yeah, so I'll break down the New York versus Ultra just because that was a very interesting series. Obviously, a very important matchup with regards to standings. Ultra, they had just tied for top 8 with both Paris and Optic with their win against FaZe. So, this win here would allow them to leapfrog Optic and potentially come within 10 points of New York. They weren't very far ahead. This was a very important match for finishing top 8 at champs. Same with New York. If they want to, at best they can do is place 5th and get the worst of the 4 teams that aren't in the top 4. That's obviously the most ideal spot. So going into this matchup, saw very interesting vetoes. I mean, you look at played Arklov, Peak, S&D, which Ultra, they aren't the strongest in. Same with New York, although as of late, they've been a lot better. I mean, we already know the accuracy spot on that mid fence area. Looking at the hard point, though, it was very, very close, actually. Another gunrunner hard point, as I noted, and New York had lost one earlier in the tournament. But this time, they ended up beating Ultra at the very end. It was very close, and it actually ended up coming down to the P2 hill, and Lamar was the one that made the play.
All up to accuracy.
Accuracy now, though.
Pardon me. That's a little teaser. Clip.
Just to dive in there and find the kills. You've got to keep them going. Mac, has he got the option to get it done? No. Cammy wins his. This is it for the win for Toronto. New York, you've got to go. You've got to get in there now. Classic on the front door. The shots are there. Accuracy from up high, and they get on it. Oh my word! New York have done it. They've broken it with the final few seconds, and that's going to be map number 1. The Subliners.
Yeah, so we see them win the hard point. They're very, very close. They outslayed the Ultra, like they pretty much outslay all hard points. So for Ultra to keep it that close, props to them. But that was a very important match that gone differently. I think this would have been a very different series. But as I said, they played Arklov, Peak, S&D. Watch New York. We've seen them play it a lot in the past. It looks like they're trying to improve that in the rotation. Currently, the strongest S&D maps they have from memory. Let me just pull that up real quick. Currently their strongest S&D maps are St. Petrograd and Ramaza. They're 5-1 St. Petro, 7-2 Ramaza. They get their 0-7 on Gunner, 0-3 on Piccadilly. And Arklov Peak, they're 4-6. So clearly they're trying to make Arklov that third S&D that was a very confident one. And we saw it against the Ultra. They were consistently making plays. Zuma had 4 kills in a row on one round. They were outplaying Ultra to a T, and we see that at the end here. Lamar once again.
All up to accuracy.
Accuracy now, though. He's going to let Method slip by. He's going to check that bomb in a moment. There's still 25 seconds left. The timing could be fantastic on this one. There's the first. Brilliant from accuracy. 20 seconds. He's going to have to double dip. It's bad manners usually, but he's got to go for it. The stun goes through. He could make this work. Accuracy! What a round! The stun comes through. 6-2 in the end. What a magnificent finish.
All
Yeah, so that was Lamar doing some good work there. And I just want to quickly talk about Lamar for a second. So he's a guy that gets a lot of flack in the community for not being one of the higher KD'd main ARs in the league. And he definitely has struggled a little bit this year. But I just wanted to say about Lamar, he is such a clutch player. Even from back from World War II, I've always remember seeing him towards the end of hardpoints, picking up 2 pieces, picking up 3 pieces, just making big plays towards the end of the game. That's because he stays composed. You hear him during Lissidens, he's always composed. Even towards the end of the game, he keeps the calming voice, keeps the peace. I remember in World War II, he would keep Kenny from freaking out too much. So he kind of provides that nice, steady, slow-paced calls. And we saw it with the 4-piece that finished the map against Ultra in that first highlight we showed you, where he goes up top of P2 and ends up getting 4 from that position. And I imagine the comms were like, all right, you guys break. I got up top. And they just super calm, hit 1 in the back, 2 through the side door, and it worked out well. So, good break from them on that hill. And just it kind of reminds me of shades of Lamar in World War II, where he was just insanely clutch every tournament all year. So nice to see from him.
Mr. Ice in his veins.
Yep. Yeah, Mr. Ice in his veins. Nice to see him back with the ice. Maybe it melted for a bit, but it's back there now. His router. But that takes us to the Chicago. Well, actually, we should talk about the Dom, right?
It wasn't much. They played Hacky Dom. Again, New York was in control. A little bit to end on with Ultra. The event obviously being phased is a great confidence boost for them. Losing to New York in the fashion they did was a bit disappointing, especially given that they need these points. They want to place top 8. Now they're in a tie, and we'll talk about that later when it comes to standings. Just given this event, a bit of a letdown from guys like Zinni and Bance. Bance did have some great plays, but for those two players to be on the main AR position and finish below 1.0, that just can simply not happen. You're never going to be able to beat teams getting consistently outslayed in the respawns. Their Dom in particular looked very poor, and as they've mentioned on streams, that's something that they have to focus on. And hopefully, if they keep this 5-man roster, specific one that is, we'll see some improvements. But yeah, that's all I have to say on them.
All right, yeah. So that'll take us to the other semifinal, which was Huntsman just absolutely destroying FaZe, 3-0ing them. And as you can see, if you can see on the broadcast, Alec put up his phone and it was a little note for the FaZe boys, which just said "my sons," and I specifically think he meant VZ and Simp as former teammates. So I think it's the first time they matched up this year, right? This is the most anticipated matchup we've had all year. When is Chicago going to play FaZe? When is Chicago going to play FaZe? Yeah, it finally happens, and it was a destruction. And I just, Alec must have been on top of the world beating his former teammates, so I'm not surprised he talked a little trash. We all know Alec likes to talk a little trash. But I think it was warranted. He had a great series, including this clip right here.
Maniac does come through. He wins it. Now it's RC's 1v2. 30 seconds to go. Can he pull it off? He's got one player's position. He's so worried about the God box, but nobody there for now. Gonna get the flash out. Wins the one-on-one in the back. Now down to a 1v1. Him versus Celium. 20 to go. He knows he's got to go. Can he get the angle over the top? He gets the kill. Arseny's with the 1v2 clutch. And the 5th round for Huntsman. They can do no wrong.
Yep. Major Maniac, I don't know why you're peeking out of the car there, because you just got beamed. And then Salim tries to run away. It gets caught. So great clutch by Alec to go 8-2 in that S&D. And then obviously the Dom, Pristini goes buck wild and starts just destroying everyone. So great performance up to this point from the Huntsmen, beating the FaZe. They got the matchup. They won the matchup. We all love that. But then that brings us to the grand final, where we saw this happen. So for those of you that are a little confused for why I'm putting Attach above TGP and laughing at them a little bit, is because this has been a theme of Attach disappointing TGP in grand finals. Well, not really a consistent theme. It hasn't happened in a while. But the last time it did happen was in World War II, where we saw this occur.
Scup with a kill. Priesthood with a kill. It's all in Attach now. The comeback seems to be dead. The comeback seems to be dead. He runs through his own artillery. He runs through his own artillery. And now it's a 1 versus 1.
Yeah, but Krim knows where he's going. Krim has read this perfectly. But I think Attach saw him. Did Attach see him?
1-on-1. 1-on-1. Oh my God. Krim's in the sight. Attach tracking back. Krim goes low on him.
I think he might have saw him. Ring around the Rosie.
Attach to the other side. 20 seconds on the clock. Krim's got to find the kill or get this planted. Oh my God, Krim's hitting mid-map. Attach comes back. Here's the gunfight. Attach is able to win it. FaZe Clan up though.
And yeah, it's a little bit of a reminder of what Attach can do against TTP. So yeah, so why don't you talk a little bit about this matchup and maybe why Attach has been able to clutch against these guys in the past.
Yeah, so long-time Call of Duty fans will know that Zuma and Attach, both of them, but Attach in particular because of this clip, and T2P have faced off numerous times in the past. Obviously, FaZe and Zuma used to play for FaZe themselves and had matched up against Optic. many times. I mean, we saw Attach take down Optic at AW Champs. We saw Attach and Zuma on FaZe take down Optic multiple times throughout the years, even in a W at times with Clayster. We saw Optic and T2P take them down. I mean, the most recent one was obviously the World War II Stage 1 playoffs, where we saw FaZe from losers bracket beat T2P when I don't think myself and anyone else expected them to. So we see Attach and Zuma in particular in S&D. That's where they both shine. And that's where the Optic Dynasty historically has struggled in. I think that's sort of why at times Attach in particular has had their number. But we see them face off in grand finals for the first time, at least this year, and for the first time in a while. And it was a bit more of the same. We saw Attach sort of take over. But Seth, why don't you break this down for us?
Yeah, so we saw New York take it, beating Chicago 3-0 in a pretty dominant fashion. And I am upset about this series because of map vetoes. How are you going to let Hackney Dom through again? How? How does it happen? New York. Okay, so New York played Hackney Dom, and that was it. That was the only Dom map they played this entire tournament. Except, wait, is that right?
Yes, it is the only Dom map they played. Yep.
That's okay, and they looked good on it. They just beat you on it in the group stage. You're gonna play them again on the Hackney Dom after they smoked FaZe on it as well. Just Toronto on it as well. Why ban it? Ban Hackney Dom. Just do it. It's not like just play one of the different Dom maps. It's not that complicated. Like I don't know what the coaches are doing, but how do you let the same map go through that the New York's proven themselves to be good on? And specifically, Temp had a great time on Hackney Dom all weekend. They let it through. It goes the way it goes. And New York comes out with the victory. I think from what it's a bit weird to talk about because Attach is very gifted and is very skilled, and I'm not trying to take that away from him. But this is what I expect from Attach. All right, I want to see this more consistently because he hasn't been bad this year, and he certainly was not bad last year. He showed a lot of good stuff on EG, but I want it more consistently, and I also want it to the point where he is almost at the superstar level. I don't think he's regressed to the point where we could say he's washed.
Yeah.
Or he's an old player. He doesn't have the, I don't. That's not an excuse I want to hear about Attach. He's still very young and he's still very, very skilled. It just hasn't been consistent. And we finally got a nice, consistent weekend out of Attach, and look what happened, right? I mean, this team we always talked about either was the S&D struggle or was one player on the map dropping a dud. But we finally saw them play consistently. They picked up their S&D, and Attach specifically, I thought, in terms of where they were before, where they are now, that's what I want to see. I want to see this from Attach. This is why I was so hard on them in the past on different podcasts. It's because this is the expectation that I have for them. It's maybe not winning the whole thing, but playing at this level. If they played at this level and then lost the grand final against T2P and Chicago Huntsmen, that's still a big win. That's still very well. The fact that they're able to beat them is even more impressive, and I think is telling for how good this team really could be. But yeah, so why don't you talk about the map vetoes for New York?
Yeah, for sure. Map vetoes, as you mentioned, Hackney Dom. The only map they played, which doesn't make any sense to me either, especially considering you look at their other Dom maps. They're 3-6 on Gunrunner, and they have actually never played St. Petrograd Dom in the CDL, at least from my understanding. Which, I mean, if you're the Huntsman, I mean, you're 5-2 on St. Petro, you're 5-1 on Gunrunner, you're 7-7 on Hackney. Why are you playing Hackney? There should be no way that you get Hackney twice, especially the second time around when you've lost it the series before. Maybe it was a comfortability thing. Maybe they thought they were good on it, better than New York. Either way, very. I
don't care. No, I don't care. That's not good enough.
You're right. That's simply not good enough. I mean, New York in general, and hats off to JP Krez and Bobble, or Revan as many know him, for their map vetoes, and they did a very good job. Most of the series, they had the upper hand in map vetoes. I mean, just going back to their first match with Minnesota, they played Gunrunner, which New York's 10-5, Minnesota's 1-5. They played St. Petro S&D, which New York's 5-1. Mini didn't want to play Ramaz, and I think this is where New York's starting to gain traction, and I think this is sustainable. Is that the fact that they're building a strong map pool, especially in S&D. They have two strong S&D maps in Ramaz and St. Petro, and Arclos becoming the third. And with that, you're not going to see a lot of Gunrunner Piccadilly, or at least you should see that. Not a lot of teams played them on Gunrunner or Piccadilly S&D besides Huntsman. Huntsman played them map 5 Gunrunner, and New York's 0-7, and understandably they lost that map. Why teams won't pick Gunrunner and Piccadilly just because they're uncomfortable, it boggles my mind, because those are two maps that New York's never won. You should want to play those S&D maps. You should pick them because you can pick either, because New York can only ban one. So that in itself is a bit disappointing. But yeah, once again, Dom was their weakest game mode going into this event. Many expected the S&D, but Dom actually was. And they had an 80% win rate in Dom. They only lost one Dom, which was the first one to Minnesota. The rest of them they won. And that, when you know Dom, that game 3 you can win, that becomes a real backbone for a team. And we saw, especially on Sunday, 6-0. It's quite the statement that they made. Just look at their stats. Obviously, we highlight Attach at a 1.14, a 1.19 if it's an AKD for average, Actually at a 1.13, Mac a 1.22, Temp a 1.14, and Zuma a 1.05. So all of them above a 1 KD,
Jesus.
Which is very, very impressive. And not just above one, they smashed those records. I think slaying the way they did in Hardpoint definitely led for that fact. Interesting enough, S&D KD, only Attach had a positive S&D KD, although he had a 1.41. So that's a massive difference to have that high of a KD, especially in S&D. I think S&D definitely improved. We saw them with more coordinated hits. We saw them, as I mentioned, deeper map pool with now Arklov started being in the rotation, so they can really challenge most teams on any map. And again, we saw the numerous plays that they were making. They just looked like a complete team. I do think this is sustainable for them. I'm very curious to see how they will play moving forward. But I do think that they have now entered into that conversation of being a contender against these top teams. Unless some of them, open their eyes and realize, you know what, maybe we should actually try and play them on their worst maps instead of their best maps. And maybe New York will have a tougher time. Who knows? Doesn't look like the coaches have sort of listened. Sender, man, those map vetoes, what are you doing? But that pretty much wraps up what I had to say about New York. Very great showing, and I'm very curious to see if they can keep it up.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see if they can keep up the slaying. I think it's going to be a little hard too, But, yeah, it's the fifth winner. It's the fifth winner, so that's fun. So that'll wrap up our discussion on CDL New York. And I'm going to quickly run through the MC now. People always want to see what's happening in the MC and see who's popping off. So I'll run through it quickly with you guys. So first, CDC Cup 5. This happened, I think, 2-3 weeks ago. And this is still before, the MP5 nerf. And we saw 6 Gear beating Atlanta FaZe Academy to take it in the NA And this was actually in 2 best of 5s back-to-back. So it was very, very impressive for 6 Gear. So I think we saw consistency from Atlanta FaZe Academy, and now we don't, and they lose, but they looked fine in Respawn. They lost all 4 S&Ds to 6 Gear. And 6 Gear were just on in S&D, on in Search, just dominating FaZe in those maps. And I have a clip of Katani making some plays in the game. I think this is the second game 5, which they ended up taking. So here's Katani.
Crazy as he was trying to pitch things up, it's looking like this should lead to a relatively safe bomb plan here at A.
Oh, look at that line sight from Katani. Doesn't want to really reveal his position, but at the very least gets the good timing in terms of not allowing for that objective to be planted. Boy. And in the meantime, TCM takes down Journey. TCM is just so annoying to have to deal with if you are this Atlanta roster, just constantly having a player that can hide around and be a nuisance is never going to be fun. Katani, last one alive as a player up close. Not a whole lot of ammo, picks up the MP5, tosses out the smoke to hopefully try to get out and dodge, and shuts down the end. Unreal stuff coming through from Katani. It did not look good by any means, and the smoke, I'm pretty sure, indicated that he thought somebody was pretty much on his flank.
Yeah, so Katani making some plays there in Search was nice to see from him. And just kind of highlights how good 6 Gear were in S&D there. He gets, I think he got 4 in that round to take the round. And then in the next round, I'm not going to show it because it's a bit of a longer clip, but Noisy ends up getting a 1v3 to take it. So back-to-back rounds, playing with the man disadvantage, ended up beating FaZe and S&D. Very, very impressive. I'm happy for these guys. these are guys that the past podcasts have said are close, and they end up doing it, they end up winning it, so good for them. I think Fame and Diamond Khan are guys to look out for in the future. Katani and Noisy are nasty, and S&D specialists, as you can see from Katani there. So great for them. And just a quick note, if you recall, Traza and Hollow, as I mentioned now on Optic, they were on UAU, and they're not here. They're not in the top 8. They placed top 16 at the CBC Cup. And after placing top 16, 2 of them get picked up. That's kind of weird to me. I personally, if I had to say, I would have gone for either Fire on Exotic's team. They placed top 3 there. Fire is very, very, extremely individually gifted in terms of talent. I don't know how he's a teammate, so maybe that's not why they wanted to take a chance on him. And he is newer to the scene, to be fair. But I think he's going to be a player in the future to look out for. He's very, very sick. Another player that I would have considered is either Pentagram, especially with the new meta, where he can flex on an AR. He's definitely able to do that. And then the only other player I would suggest is, out of this bunch at least, is, Sibilance. But I imagine he was probably contracted on a lot of Phase Academy, so I bet that's why Optic couldn't really snatch him from there. But yeah, so I mean, I don't know. It's just weird. UIU never won one of these cups, by the way. They never did. They placed top 3 or top 2. That was it. They never won one of the events, and yet 2 of the guys get picked up to play on Optic Gaming. I hope the best for them, but I don't know. I would have gone for some other players personally. And as you can see, after those 2 guys get snatched from Optic, UIU ends up winning the next one. The first win for the organization on the online events happens after 2 of them get poached by Optic, which is kind of funny. But Daft Patty was very, very, very good all year as a main AR, like just super, super consistent. He was playing with Royalty Fellow and Nagafin and Standy in the past, and he looked very good on that team. And then Jintroid got picked up from Team Vengeance, and Jintroid is very good at S&D, and putting him with Cells is also good at S&D, makes UIU a terrifying team to play against. I think if Champs was a Champs, as it usually was, I would be terrified to play UIU, because they could 2-3-5 you in a heartbeat. I mean, their S&Ds are going to be sick with that roster. Sensor, who replaced Dav Patty, and Triumph got 4th, and then they dropped Sensor, which is, sad for Doug, but Doug did not play that well, and I don't really think it's entirely his fault. I mean, Triumph just dropped let their best player go and replaced him with Sensor. I don't think how much higher did you set them really to place? It's not going to be easy for them, so I don't want to give Sensor too much flack for that, but he did not do that well individually. And to wrap up the NA scene, I think, looking forward to the end of the year, there apparently is a lot of roster mania, so I don't know what to make of that. It's hard for me now to say what the best team is going to be, but I would keep looking out for this new UIU roster. I think they're going to be great in S&D, be really scary. And also Bink, I think it's playing with Theory, Medicate, Tiny, and Twiz. Not the best lineup ever, but Bink individually, I've seen him in scrims. Dude is, and then 10s, he is nasty. Bink is someone to remember. It's kind of a dumb name, but Bink is very good. That wraps up the NA scene. Moving on to the EU scene. The last EU Cup, Timor won against Trainhard, and interesting map, the interesting series because I went to a Game 5 and Timor just about edged it out. But I was watching the series back and I had to make a post on Reddit right away because wow, Afro and Hydra, an insane series from the 2 of those guys. They went big. I mean, you expect Dave and Brezzy and Whalers to have big maps because they're the veterans, they're more stapled. But Afro and Hydra really, really impressed me. And specifically Hydra, because unfortunately the observers didn't catch a lot of Afro's crazy plays, which is a little bit sad. But they definitely caught some of Hydra. So I'm going to show 2 clips of Hydra. Just Hydra. That's one takeaway from the AM scene, Hydra. So we'll show you some clips.
They're in a good position to find maybe the first 30. Look at Hydra, the opportunity that he has. This is wonderful timing that he has right now, and he wins the fight versus Dave. A big situation that he has coming up, a 1v1 that could turn the tides, and he wins it versus Vortex. Hop in the hill, my good man. You've awarded yourself the time. Player sitting in yellow, shut down as well. Hydra is absolutely unbelievable. 5 kills in a row. He is setting up for what would be a P5 hill, one that Trainhard does not look like they have any right in getting, and based off of that play from Hydra, they now have spawns as well. for dock building. So impressive from Hydra. What a sequence there, and it's only going to continue, it looks like, as there's a 6th.
I am absolutely flabbergasted as Hydra finds number 7, and if he...
Yeah, so Hydra just goes on his cute little 7 spree by himself on rotation to flip the spawns. Insane play from Hydra. Here's another clip of what he can do. This is just a small little clip of him dominating on top of Hazmat.
Control, and a lot of that is based off of the aggression being shown from Hydra. Again, it's the young guns, it's the SMGs that are continually pushing up these lanes, and Hydra seems to be one of the many highlight players that we've seen so far throughout the day.
And now you found Afro in the back. This is the moment where Traynor with a favorable kill feed. You should not still be in restaurant. You have to be pushing forward with everybody if you want to flip these spawns. And Hydra again is doing it all. He's 21-7, 4 kills straight, and he still doesn't have any help here in Hazmat. If you're train hard, get forward. Try to flip these spawns up. These are more continual team kills coming out for our squad in blue, but it's Whalers who's backing up for the A flag. Just a bit
Yeah, just a crazy kind of spree there from Hydra going off on top Hazmat. I mean, those are just 2 small clips of what he can do. He's an insane, insane talent. I really hope he gets picked up next year by hopefully the Paris Legion. I mean, this is a Paris team. Pick up Hydra. He's insane. And he's French. So I think, if they don't pick up Hydra next year, I'm going to be very, very upset. This guy is very, very skilled. Excited to see what he can do in the future. And then that'll take us to the New York CDC Open, which happened 2 weeks later, and Timor won again, and Trey Hard finished second again. So these two are kind of ironing themselves out as the top 2 in the scene. I think Lenny, Madcat, Nasty, Nolson, that team, they're not quite there. Some holes in the team. I don't think they can really keep up with Hydra and Afro. They don't have like that kind of young gun. Nasty's very good, but he's not at the same level of pace and just raw gun skill as Hydra and Afro in terms of being a young player. And then Singularity, they've kind of fallen off, placing top 6. And I'm actually, I don't really care. I used to be, I sound so sad, but I used to be a Singularity fan. They dropped Maple for Chain. And I'm very mad about that because I really liked Maple. I don't know what's going on with their comms. I can't say if Maple was being toxic or whatever it is. But, to see a team that started out doing so hot online and even on LAN, to see them kind of falling apart now is a little sad. I do wish we could have seen what they could have done against some pro teams, at Champs if they had stuck together. But they're kind of falling apart, and I'm not sure if they're going to stick together next year. I don't think they will, and I think you might see Insight or Bids, maybe Chain, get picked up by a pro league team. But that's my thoughts on those guys. And then APAC scene.
Wonder who won.
Yep, I know. But you know what though? This was a close series. Went to a game 5. It was 6-4 in the game 5. It was very close. Renegades ended up taking it because I think it was. I don't want to give the wrong person, but I think it was reselling or damage. Didn't peek the bomb site on and shoot a guy off of the bomb. So it's a bit of a because in a 1v2 and just didn't make the gutsy play and ended up losing it. And I think if you're in that kind of situation and you're Chiefs and you keep losing it over and over and over again, just make the gutsy play. Just do it. The worst it is that you lose again. The best you win, which is awesome. So make the gutsy play next time. But they didn't have the opportunity to because the next one, Throne finished second. Yay, we finally get a shakeup. Renegades still win, but we got Throne finishing in second. I don't really know any of those guys outside of Beast, but good for them. Nice to see. But yeah, that'll wrap up the AMC coverage. Just more of the same in the EU and the APAC region. But in the NA regions, it's still kind of a crapshoot. So
Doug.
Going into Champs for and Doug, do you have any thoughts on Doug? You can give some thoughts if you want.
I mean, I saw their scrim against the Huntsman, and it was not pretty for Doug, to say the least. He dropped, I think, a 0.5 KD across the entire scrim, which obviously KD doesn't matter so much during scrims, but doing that poorly, I don't think your teammates are going to stick with you for very long. It is sad to see him go.
Yeah.
At least if the rumors are true that he has been dropped. I would have liked to see him get more of an opportunity. I mean, they placed top 4 at their first CEC Cup. So
yeah, they placed top 4, and they just lost their best player, Dap Patty. That's not that bad. Like, it isn't. I mean, I know he probably maybe didn't do that well individually, but I think it may have just been, they were looking for a 5th, they couldn't find one in time, and they knew Doug would do it, so they asked Doug. I think maybe he got taken advantage of a little bit. That's my personal opinion, but yeah, but that'll wrap up the AM scene. And we'll go on for about an hour now. So I think we're going to cut it off before we do our predictions. We might film a prediction podcast on Thursday, so stay tuned for that. So any concluding thoughts about this event as a whole?
No, just another
podcast.
Very interesting event. I don't think any of us saw the Subliners necessarily winning, especially not in the fashion they did. But, great breakdown from all the stats guys. Like I mentioned earlier, we'll have all their links to their Twitters in the description box down below, so go check them out. Check out Octane. Obviously, we have Carson. Another one last stat. He had a wins above replacement leaderboard, as you can see on the screen. He's doing a lot of great stuff on his website, a lot of very interesting advanced analytics, which we haven't had in the Call of Duty scene before. So very curious to see how these play out. Obviously, Attach up there. And this is before this event even happened. So just to show how important Attach was to New York even before this event began. So really great for him to see. Want to see if Attach and Mac can keep it up. I heard apparently Attach just dropped 50 in 10s recently, so as of like last night or
50
as we're recording this, so cool for him. But unless Seth, you have anything else to say, guys, just please like, comment, subscribe. Let us know what you think of this podcast. Any recommendations for the next podcast? So obviously, we'll be doing standings and predictions, and I hope you guys enjoyed this one.
Yeah, that's all I got to say. So thank you guys for listening. And